Good evening to each and everyone. I am Mary Chris, I'm Saavedra, and for today's evening, I am able to discussing the structurings, the literature's lessons. Before we start to our new topics, let's read first our objectives. At the end of the lessons, we are expected to A. Identify the parts of literature's reading lesson plan. B. Select appropriate activities before, during, and after reading. C. Create a lesson plan in teaching a literacy selections for children. The lesson plan in teaching literature is prepared by the teachers to guide him/her in presenting a lesson in an orderly and smooth manner. Such way, learners can engage in activities that are meaningful, foster interest, and ensure attainment and desired learning outcomes. Also, the lesson plan is used as a roadmap of the teachers. At the same time, the lesson plans give logical sequence of activities that focus on best practice based on research and experience of the teachers. At the same time, planning the lesson will keep the teachers and the students on track to avoiding the unpleasant surprises in the classroom. We as educator making a lesson plan is very important because it is our guide to make our discussion more presentable and appropriate. At the same time, making a lesson plan help us to determine of what the students will learn and how the topics or the lessons will be taught, and as well as of how the learnings will be able to evaluate. Because lesson plan help us as educator to function more effectively by giving a detailed outline that they adhere during each class. Literature's lesson plans contains of 6 major parts, and these are the learning outcomes, content subject, learning resources, learning activities procedures, evaluations, assignment, and agreement. What is learning outcomes? Learning outcomes is presided by the statements of content standards, performance standards, and learning competency, which are all specified by the curriculum guide for the subject in each grade level. Content standard is a broad statement that specifies content areas that the learners should learn at each grade level. Performance standards are anticipated measures or evidences that the learners have met the content standards. These objectives are based on Barrett's taxonomy of cognitive and affective reading comprehensions. If you notice, to this format, the possession level of content standards and performance standards are higher than learning competency, simply because the teacher needs to set standards for his subject matter or contents, and for the performance of his/her learners above the content, because these content standards and performance standard will help the teachers to obtain or to achieve the learning objectives. It means content standards focusing on subject content or lessons, while performance standards focusing on performance of learners based on the content. So, the job of content standard is to set expectation to a specific learning outcomes, while the job of performance standards is to set expectations regarding to performances of your future's content. While the learning competency are the specific indicator of achievements of the learners after instructions. Objectives. These are statements communicated by the teachers to the students on what they should be able to master and demonstrate at the end of the learning experiences. The objectives consist of 3 domains, which is the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So what is cognitive skills? Cognitive skills are mental processes that the learners engage in, while the affective domain involves the feelings, emotions, and attitudes attached by the learners to the selections read. While the psychomotor domain is a dimensions and reading comprehensions involves performance actions on tasks that pertains to the messages and actions of characteristics in the story read. In lesson plan, the objectives is very important because it is the goal of what the teachers wants the learners to achieve or to learn at the end of the lessons. The objectives is divided into 3 domains, which is the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain. The cognitive domain deals with the intellectual side of the learning of the students, while the affective domain deals with the attitudes, interests, and emotions of the students. And the psychomotor domain focuses on motor skills and actions that require physical coordinations. The same folktale previously mentioned the psychomotor's objectives could be, and these are the content standards, performance standards, and learning competencies. Content standard use of content and prior knowledge. Performance standards activate prior knowledge conceptually related to the next establishing a purpose for reading. Learning competencies give details of the story, which is the cognitive. Draw the tortoise and monkey showing the emotions, it is psychomotor. Identify the parts of the story you like the most, which is the affective. Content subject matter. It refers to the topics to be taught, usually the objective stated in the base form transformed into a verbal. Sequence events in the story to sequencing events in the story. On the other hand, learning resources pertains to the reference, the materials and the equipments to be used in the executions of the lesson plan. Learning activities procedures presents the orderly presentations of activities to engage learners in the study of the reading and to understand the message of what is read. It is the how portions of the lessons. According to Lazar 2009, recommended useful activities that could be undertaken during the pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading stage on the reading lessons. These praise have separated features to attain specific purposes. Lazar 2009 recommended useful activities, and these useful activities called before reading or pre-reading. Before reading or pre-reading, considered the most important part of the reading lessons. It provides learners with activities to set the stage for reading, to motivate and hook them to the reading task. Activities guide learners to reflect on what is already known and what they think about the topic. So, how do we able to conduct the post-reading or pre-reading? And what tools or activities that we should be presented to our learners? So, in conducting post-reading or pre-reading, we need to present some materials that the students can be relate, either pictures or asking our students of some questions like, class, do you have ever seen a cow or chicken? So that the students will be able to answer and share their experience and knowledge and their ideas about it. So in post or pre-reading, it's all about motivating and preparing our students to the lessons or activities ahead. Before reading or pre-reading are the activities are aimed at A. Stimulating learners' interest in the text. So what is stimulating learners? Stimulating learners, asking learners to describe pictures or drawing relevant to the theme of the story, of poem, and providing their cultures and historical background, including the author's life, could create learners' interest in their learning task. For example, identify the animals in these pictures and describe the theme. Second is developing concepts related to the topics or story. Learners lead to identify terms or concepts that they know which are related to those encountered in the selections to read. For example, what word comes to mind when you hear the word monkey? Third is activating prior knowledge, asking what learners already know about the topics, events, and terms used in the story helps learners to connect or relate their experiences to the story to be read. This is the end of my report. The next reporter will be Miss Princess Maynana.
I am Maynana, and my topic is the continuation of the report of Miss Saavedra. What is unlocking of difficulties? Unlocking of difficulties. Difficult terms to be encountered in the reading selection are explained through the use of context clues, determining the related words, and acting it out among others. In other words, this unlocking of difficulties help the learners understand more about the story or poem by guiding them to understand metaphorical and symbolic means. Let's observe the sentence. When the hen saw the hawk coming, she was frightened and ran to hide. In this sentence, we can say that the difficult term is frightened. As a teacher, we can also give a multiple choices. Giving choices for our students can help them determine the related words that will make students easily understand the context. Next is developing a purpose for reading. Developing a purpose for reading, it gives a mission or purpose for the learners to read, and it is called the motive question. These motives questions tells the readers what they are expected to read or learn. By giving a motive questions, the learners will be curious and will concentrate as well as engage themselves while they are reading. In addition, the teacher asks a motive question for the students to look for the answers while they are reading. Next is during reading or while reading. During reading, the teacher models, explains, shows, or presents to the class what they are expected to learn. According to Anderson et al. 1985, reading aloud to children is the single most important activity for building the knowledge required for eventual success in reading. Why is reading aloud important? Reading aloud is important for it guides learners to understand the story read and help them make connection with the details of the story. The teacher may use gradual psychological unfolding strategy. When we say gradual psychological strategy, it is a teaching strategy that used by the teachers for developing the reading comprehension of the students. Next is after reading. This part of the lesson engaged the learners to share and discuss their ideas about the selection read with the rest of the class. So in here, teacher will ask a question to the students like, what lesson in life does the story tell us? Or students can also write a reflection based on what they have learned, as well as students can also write an essay to verbalize their thoughts about life lessons. Evaluation is a form of quiz or other ways to measure the attainment of the prescribed competency. The goal of evaluation is to determine the extent of mastery of the reading skills taught for the lesson. In addition, the quiz is usually presented in objective tests that can be true or false, yes or no, and multiple choices test types. Finally, the lesson plan ends with assignment. Assignment is the information given to the learners what to do and how to do it, as carried over follow-up of the lesson or in preparation on the next day lesson. What is the purpose of assignment? The actual reason behind the purpose of assignments is to improve the learning skills of students. Because if students use their brains, it is more chances they can learn more. So the basic reason of giving assignments is to provide a practice exposure and knowledge enhancement of a subject.